You might have seen pictures of the Northern Lights being shared earlier this week, even as far south as Cornwall in the UK. Well, this one might take some beating. These images of the aurora borealis over Earth were taken by Russia's space agency cosmonaut from the International Space Station. They were captured during one of the most powerful solar storms in more than 20 years. Amazing pictures there from outer space of the aurora borealis. Do stay with us here on BBC News. We've got plenty more anytime on all the stories we're covering on our website. News Now will be here in just a couple of minutes. Bye for now.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Several global leaders join President Trump in signing his Board of Peace Treaty at a ceremony in Davos. President Zelensky arrives in Switzerland to meet President Trump. The US says talks to end the war in Ukraine are down to one last issue. There's relief from Denmark after President Trump backs down on his Greenland threats, but details on a plan are still to be revealed.
I'm Christian Fraser, live in Davos. So many moving parts at the moment on Greenland, the Middle East and Ukraine. We'll dissect it all in the course of the next hour.
Also coming up on News Now this hour, the search continues through the night for people missing in a landslide in New Zealand after record levels of rain. And with Oscar nominations due shortly, the Leonardo DiCaprio film One Battle After Another is a leading contender. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Welcome to BBC News Now. 3 hours of fast-moving news, interviews and reaction. Well, you join us at a moment of huge diplomatic consequence this hour as global leaders, including President Trump, shape major potential changes to the way the world is run. So do stay with us for that. And we're also going to bring you the very latest from those landslides that are happening in New Zealand as well. And we are counting down to the nominations when it comes to the Academy Awards. We'll have a special program coming up for you when it comes to the Oscars as well. So lots of strands to still bring you around what is happening in Davos and President Trump and all the other news too. So do stay with us around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News. Welcome back. Let's return to Davos. President Trump as well, what he's been saying. And as I promised, we're going to talk now about Greenland. The US president, seems to have stepped away from his military and his tariff threats. But what do we actually know about what this plan is that he has for Greenland? Back to Christian, who I don't expect to have the answer to that, but you might have a few theories, Christian. What's being said about some potential deal that might have been done on Greenland?
Plenty to watch.
There is indeed. Christian will be with us throughout the day. Thanks so much, Christian. I'll be back. We'll be live in the Middle East in a moment to get reaction to Donald Trump's Board of Peace. This is BBC News, the headlines. Several global leaders have joined President Trump in signing his Board of Peace Treaty at a ceremony in Davos. President Zelensky is now there in Switzerland meeting President Trump. The US says talks to end the war in Ukraine are down to one last issue. Relief from Denmark after President Trump backs down on his Greenland threats, but details on a plan are still to be revealed. In other news, the search is continuing through the night for people missing in a landslide in New Zealand after record levels of rain. Prince Harry returns to the High Court to support fellow claimants in their legal action against the publisher of the Daily Mail. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Good to have you with us. We're going to keep you right across all the events taking place in Davos at the moment and President Trump's movements as well. He has in the past few hours signed a charter for the Board of Peace alongside various world leaders in Davos. We know he's meeting Ukraine's President Zelensky as well. That's all happening at the moment around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News. Welcome back. The Oscars are looming, a really exciting time in amongst all of these awards ceremonies that we have been seeing. All eyes will be on the nominees today. We're going to bring you a special programme at 13:30 GMT. And my colleague Lewis Vaughan Jones is lucky enough to be covering it for us, and he's to tell us all about it. It's always an exciting event, isn't it, Lewis, just finding out who's been nominated. So, lots going on. President Zelensky, we understand, meeting with President Trump in Davos. Any news lines from that, we will bring them straight to you. But we are also counting down to this year's Oscar nominations. The Academy Awards, we will know in the next half an hour or so, I think it gets underway, who has been nominated. There's the clock, 34 minutes and 42 seconds. One battle after another, and Sinners, also Hamlet, three of the big movies being tipped for success. Live from London, this is BBC News. Several nations join President Trump in signing his Board of Peace Treaty at a ceremony in Davos. The UK isn't one of them. President Zelensky is in Switzerland now meeting President Trump. The US says talks to end the war in Ukraine are down to one last issue. President Trump has backed down on threats to take Greenland, but details on a compromise plan are yet to be revealed.
I'm Christian Fraser in Davos. So many moving parts at the moment on Greenland, the Middle East and Ukraine. We'll dissect it all in the course of the next hour.
Also coming up on News Now, the search continues for people missing after a landslide in New Zealand. It followed record levels of rain which led to flooding. And we'll bring you the Oscar nominations live shortly. It's Leonardo DiCaprio's film, One Battle After Another, that's the leading contender. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Welcome to BBC News Now. 3 hours of fast-moving news, interviews and reaction. We continue our coverage this hour of a huge day in diplomacy, where developments out of Davos could have major impacts across the globe. It's a moment of immense diplomatic consequence as global leaders, including President Trump, shape major potential changes to the way the world is run.
I will take a short break. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
Welcome back. We know that President Zelensky is in talks at the moment with President Trump. He wasn't going to go to Davos because of the energy crisis at home, but decided to come. A really crucial meeting being held between the two of them. Christian, great to have you with us. See you again throughout the day. We have just had a statement from the White House, actually. You saw President Trump leaving the room there. He took a few questions from reporters, but didn't comment on whether any progress had been made when it came to Ukraine. But we've just heard from the White House that meeting between President Trump and Zelensky lasted for about an hour. So we're still waiting for details. As soon as we have those, we will bring them to you. But do stay with us here on BBC News, because the nominations for the 98th annual Oscars are about to be announced. The ceremony itself will be held on the 15th of March, but it's today that we hear who has been nominated, what movies have been nominated. So let's join Lewis Vaughan Jones.
Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Lewis Vaughan Jones. This is our look ahead to the Oscar nominations. Just a few minutes away now. We will learn which films, actors, actresses will be dominating the categories. Some interesting things for us to get through. But first, with me is Lola Schroer here in the studio, Noor Nanji as well, and Lizo Mzimba, our crack BBC team. Right, we've only got a couple of minutes, so Lizo, just kick us off. What are some of the big headlines we should be looking out for here? To step in the right direction, potentially. This is the 98th Oscars, and we are expecting potentially a record broken. As Lizo said right at the beginning, maybe if Sinners can get that 15 nominations across the categories. That would beat the existing record of 14. So that could be a headline after the nominations are up and running. We shall wait and see. And of course, always the big stories will be the big actors and the big directors. Just briefly, Nord, director, who are we thinking here?
Well, I mean, there's so many though. Chloe Zhao, I think, is a really interesting one to watch because we're hearing about Hamnet there, and she's of course the director of that. So I think for her, this could be potentially a big day. I mean, and
Paul Thomas.
And Paul.
Exactly. Obviously, we'll see.
Lynette Howell-Taylor.
Thank you for joining us as we announce our nominees for the 98th Oscars. It is very early in the morning here in Los Angeles, but we know that there are people watching this in every time zone all over the world.
For that, and thank you too to Noor and to Lola. Just so you know, we are all staying around. We are all staying live on the stream. You can click the QR code there, as you can see. But that just about wraps up this part of our show. But do stay with us if you can. I'm Lewis Vaughan Jones, and this is BBC News.
Live from London, this is BBC News. President Trump claims a good meeting took place with Volodymyr Zelensky in Davos. Washington says talks to end the war are down to one last issue. Several nations joined President Trump in signing a Board of Peace treaty at a ceremony in Davos. The UK isn't one of them. President Trump has backed down on his threats to take Greenland by force or by using tariffs, but details on a compromise plan are yet to be revealed.
I'm Christian Fraser, live in Davos. So many moving parts this hour on Greenland, the Middle East and Ukraine. We'll dissect it all in the course of the next half hour.
And in other news, the search continues for people missing after a landslide in New Zealand. It followed record levels of rain, which led to flooding. And the horror film Sinners sets a new Oscars record with 16 nominations. We'll bring you all the nods and the snubs for this year's Academy Awards. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Welcome to BBC News Now. We're going to continue our coverage this hour of a huge day in diplomacy where developments out of Davos could have major impacts across the globe. In the last couple of hours, in the Swiss resort of Davos, Mr. Trump has held a signing ceremony for what he calls a Board of Peace of international leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Zelensky there getting a standing ovation from the delegates at the World Economic Forum, heading straight back to Kyiv, apparently to deal with or try and help deal with the crisis around energy in Ukraine at the moment. Bombardments from Russia left the energy infrastructure in tatters in many cities. It's freezing cold there, and a lot of people are even having to move home to try and find heat and warmth and electricity. But just to update you on some of what was said that seems quite crucial coming from President Zelensky. He said the dialogue with President Trump was not simple, but said the documents to end the war are very, very nearly ready. He said that Ukraine is working with honesty and determination, and that Russia must become ready to finish this aggression. Remember, the US team are heading to Moscow today to meet with President Putin. Let's bring in Christian Fraser, who was watching as well. Christian, we listen to President Zelensky all the time, and he is incredibly frustrated and angry, as he often is, but very, very critical of Europe in this speech, I thought, saying it was good at planning for the future but could not tackle the problems of today, and also addressing quite specific things: why Europe can't stop tankers from Russia's shadow fleet and seize the oil they were carrying while President Trump can, and then also having to balance that. He always has to do this, thanking Europe for freezing Russian assets and saying that when the time comes to use them to help Ukraine, though the decision was blocked. So there was lots of criticism there as well. And I wonder what your overarching impression was of what he had to say too. Christian, great to get those thoughts from you. Thank you so much. Let's just show you the BBC News Live page right now, up and running, following all the events from Davos, the latest from President Zelensky, and also reaction from around the world. Do stay with us. This is BBC News. Welcome back. We've just had the announcements of this year's Oscar nominations, and we have a new record for the Academy Awards. Do stay with us here on BBC News. We'll be back live in Davos, just digesting that address we just saw from President Zelensky to delegates at the World Economic Forum. Very critical of Europe's future, saying it was good at planning for the future, but could not tackle the problems of today. But also saying his meeting with President Trump was good. We'll have all the details. Stay with us here on BBC News.